friend, I'm sure you know the lyrics of Destiny's Child's famous song Survivor. You know the beat, right? But today, I want to introduce you to the heartbeat of an actual survivor. Stay tuned for an incredible interview about hope, power, and overcoming. I'm Ashley White, the host of Joy on the Journey podcast, a weekly podcast all about defining, finding, and maintaining joy on the journey of life. I have promised inspiring, vulnerable, and transparent conversations. And this week, I am so excited to have my good sis, my soror, Miss Casondra Burkley present. She is a survivor of growing up in poverty, overcoming in high school rape, and many other life obstacles. Casondra has over 16 years of experience working with children and families. She uses her obstacles as stepping stones of greatness. She is a living example of conquering the obstacles of painful experiences. I've already mentioned that she is my beloved sister of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Sis, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I have already mentioned that the podcast is about defining, finding, and maintaining joy. So, in this season two, if you didn't already know, I want to start off a little different. Instead of just asking about your definition of joy, which we'll get to, as you think back over your life, what were some moments or a moment that gave you supreme joy?
The first moment that actually comes to mind is probably the birth of my daughter. It was extremely powerful and joyous to just go through the experience of birth with her, especially being that all my life, I wanted to be a mom, right? And I actually didn't have her until I was 39 years old, which for a lot of people is very late. They called it a geriatric birth, right? And so having that moment was, I think, the pinnacle of joy for me.
Mm. Now, prior to her birth, how had you defined joy?
Prior to her birth, I would say joy to me is being able to see beyond what you are experiencing or dealing with, and being able to still smile and know that there is hope beyond whatever it is that you're experiencing.
Mm. And we've talked about in your bio how you have overcome some painful experiences. So, in those moments when you were overcoming, what were you leaning on and depending on?
Mainly my spirituality, my relationship with Christ, my relationship with God, just knowing that the old preachers used to say, trouble don't last always, just really believing that, and not only believing it but experiencing it, going through a lot of the things that I went through in childhood, young adulthood, even in current years or recent years, just leaning on God and knowing that weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning, and being able to experience those mornings over and over again, going to bed weeping, but waking up with a renewed hope or a renewed, inspiration, or something. But definitely my relationship with God has definitely been the focal point, or where my dependency has lied in order for me to truly experience joy.
And did you grow up going to church, or was this something your faith grew as you became an adult?
I did. I grew up in the church. We went to Sunday school. We went to church. My mom made sure we went to church every Sunday. I spent the summers with my grandmother in Mississippi. And so she made sure we were up for Sunday school and all of those things. But I'll be honest and say, as a young girl, church was church, right? It was something I was checking off the box. But as I got older, I moved from religion to relationship.
Oh, that's good.
So it was more about my communion with God. It was more about let me hear God speak to me and not just what I'm hearing from the pulpit. And so as I grew in my relationship with God, my definition or my desire to be in church changed, right? Before I was going because I was supposed to go, right? I was going because I was told to go. But as my relationship began to grow, my personal relationship, I was going because I wanted to go. And that's where I am now. I go because I want to go. There is something about the coming together of God's people that brings about this level of inspiration, encouragement, and just the power of connectivity, when you're in space with other believers.
That's good. I agree. I absolutely agree. I want to move to your personal journey. Your life has been the definition of a journey, filled with mountaintop moments and some valley moments.
Yes.
How have those moments inspired you to offer medical medical guidance to families, especially children with special needs?
As a child, we grew up very impoverished. I remember, food stamp days. I remember living in shelters. I remember moving from place to place and living with friends of my mom and things of that nature. So, coming up in that type of environment, it does something to you as a child. And I don't think I realized it until I was much older. Just some of even now, the drive that I have, came from those experiences. And some of it's good and some of it's bad. I kind of, in some instances, had to pull myself back because I realized some of the things I was doing was a trauma response. Like, oh, I can't let this happen again. So I got to do X, Y, and Z. And it would create this level of anxiety or stress, overwhelming myself. However, the good side of it was growing up and experiencing that in childhood. It really gave me this desire to want to help other people, right? It gave me this desire to see, to help people to overcome the way that I overcame. A part of that journey also was me, being raped in high school. Our house was broken into and I was raped by a stranger, and that was very devastating for me. I felt a lot of shame. I felt embarrassed. I felt I was alone. I didn't have anyone I could talk to. We didn't really talk about it at home. It was kind of like this unspoken thing. And so thinking back on what that experience was like for me gave me this drive to say, I don't want anyone else to ever feel alone. I don't want anyone else to feel like they have to be ashamed of something that they have gone through, that they have overcome. I don't consider myself a victim. I consider myself a survivor. And as a survivor, I have leaned towards using the experiences that I have gone through and using the education that I have gained to not just help children with special needs, but help families, adults, women, men, couples. I take those experiences along with my clinical, expertise in education to give back to those, to give them hope that they can overcome whatever they've experienced.
Language is so important, and you have named yourself. You have owned the title of survivor instead of victim in your circumstances. Did this come about through therapy, through prayer, through a combination? How did you get to this point of strength and ownership?
A couple of things. The support that I had around me, people that I had in my life that saw greatness in me even when I didn't see it, who were able to speak to that. I actually didn't go to therapy until later in life.
Okay.
I went to therapy, I think, in my early 30s, if I remember correctly. When I went through the rape, my mom actually asked me, did I want to go to therapy? And I said no. I was 16 at the time, and in my mind, therapy was for crazy people, you know. In my mind, I felt like if I went to therapy, I was going to be judged, or I was going to be ridiculed or looked down upon. And so I didn't go to therapy. And a big part of me, and it's not my mom's fault because she didn't know any different, but a big part of me wished that she had pushed me to go to therapy, because I feel like there's a lot of things I experienced in between that I probably could have avoided had I gone to therapy a lot earlier. But when I did go to therapy, I began to learn to recognize trigger responses, and I began to learn how to assess my perspective about things. And that's where that whole perspective of survivor versus victim comes from, because you learn basically an unraveling of the way you used to think about things in order to see things in a more positive way.
So, would you recommend that anyone goes to therapy, or that anyone can benefit from therapy?
Yes, most definitely. I think everybody could benefit from therapy. Therapy is an outlet. You know, therapy is an outlet for you to share, to talk, and for you to gain insight on the things that you've experienced. And there's different types of therapy, but one thing that I love about, if you're going to see a clinical licensed therapist, we are bound by the law. We cannot share that information. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to tell anybody my business, or I don't want people to know. And it's important for everyone to know that therapy is a safe space. You can go there, be your full authentic self, right? Your full authentic self, and know that you won't be judged, you won't be looked down on, and most importantly, what you share will remain in those walls.
That's important for everyone, because I think there still is a stigma surrounding therapy, especially in the African American community, and especially for African American women who have this banner of, we're strong, we can handle it all, that going to therapy and opening that door is, now I have to deal with or address the things that I have just accepted to be. So thank you for acknowledging, one, the legal part of what I share is between me and my therapist. So I do want to talk about C.O.P.E.
Okay.
Can you let the audience know what it stands for and its purpose?
Yes. So it stands for Conquering the Obstacles of Painful Experiences. And basically it's twofold. So I have a nonprofit arm of C.O.P.E, and then I have a for-profit arm of C.O.P.E. Both kind of coincide and do the same thing, right?
Okay.
The goal and the mission of C.O.P.E is to help individuals use their life obstacles as stepping stones to greatness. And so I believe that the title of my website is More Than Cope, right? I believe that we have been put here to do more than just cope. Coping is good, but I want to help people conquer. So I'll teach you some coping mechanisms. I'll teach you some techniques, but I want you to apply those techniques so you're no longer coping, you're now conquering, and you're able to walk as a survivor as well.
That's good. That's good. And so what have been some of the success stories, if you can call it that, from the programs?
I would definitely say just seeing people's lives change. You know, it's funny. I actually just got a card in the mail, surprisingly, the other day, sent to my P.O. box. One of my clients sent me a card, and I rarely check my P.O. box. And I went by there and I was like, what is this? And it was a card, and she was just saying, thank you for walking this journey with me, you know, and allowing me to be myself. And sometimes, you know, as therapists, we just do what we do, right? This is what I feel like I've been called to do. I feel like I've been it is my purpose in life. But to hear from other people that they are seeing change in their life, and to witness that is the most rewarding benefit of, you know, providing COPE services and doing therapy with individuals.
You just mentioned something that I want to poke on for a bit, that therapy is your purpose. When did you realize that therapy was a part of your purpose, or providing therapeutic services was a part of your purpose?
Oh, that's a tough one. I have always been called like the mama bear, you know.
That is the most appropriate definition.
I have always been called the mama bear. So in high school, in college, it was just, I was always the person just kind of giving guidance and giving advice. And so it just kind of fit, and I loved it. And it, I really can't pinpoint a moment where I just knew this was my purpose. I have always had a passion since I was a young girl to help people. And I do not believe that anything that we go through is worthless. And so, because of the experiences that I was able to overcome, it just, for me, it just fit right into what I felt like God was leading me to do. I didn't, I've seen this comment on social media and other places: God doesn't waste your pain, right? And so I just felt like, because I was able to overcome such tumultuous experiences in life, that God wanted me to use that to show other people, to be a living example, that your circumstances don't have to define you. You can change the narrative of your life at any point, right? It doesn't have to happen at 10, 16, 20. At any point in your life, you can change the trajectory regardless of what you have experienced. And so I think confirming moments throughout my life have just kind of confirmed that purpose, but I can't identify this one moment, where I'm like, okay, this is my purpose. I have to walk in it.
How important do you think it is for someone to identify their God-given purpose?
I think it's very important, but I also have to be honest and say sometimes it's very difficult, right? Because, there's a lot of things we may want to do, right? It's a lot of things that we may desire to do. The word of God tells us many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord who establishes his steps, right? And so it's important for us to walk in purpose, but we also have to take the time to actually confirm what that purpose is, right? And sometimes you gotta fumble a little bit before you actually know, okay, this is the direction that I need to go in and what I need to walk in. But it's very important to be able to identify that as early as possible, so that you can feel fulfilled in the work that you do.
That's good. And I ask her these purpose questions because let me just tell you a little bit about my sis. She is a published author, a playwright, a poet, a pastor, an international speaker, and a licensed clinical worker. How? Like, did God give you more hours in the day? You can tell. It's our secret. It can be our secret. How and when did you decide to tap into all of the talents that God granted you?
How and when? I don't know how. I think for me, I have to compartmentalize things, and there are so many things that I have a passion for. But this one thing I will say about all the things that you mentioned, they all connect.
Okay.
Right? They all connect to conquering the obstacles of painful experiences. When I write a poem, it's about conquering the obstacles of painful experiences. When I write a play, it's about conquering the obstacles of painful experiences. When I speak, it's in an environment to a crowd. I am tying in, how do you conquer the obstacles of your painful experiences? So as I am doing these pockets of things, they are all reconnecting right back to my purpose, right? And so when I decide or when I feel led to take on something new, I have to shift my focus from one of those other things to whatever it is that is calling for my attention at that time. And it has been a balancing act or an attempt to balance. But I just believe that, when God has called you something, he creates space in your mind, he creates space in your life, and it's up to us to decide what we're going to do with that time. Right. I can spend 2 hours a day, or 2 hours scrolling social media, or I can spend 2 hours working on my script. Right.
Yeah.
I can spend the weekend shopping and going to brunch, or I can spend the weekend maybe brunch on Sunday, but on Saturday, I'm working on my next workshop, right? And so it is about compartmentalizing that time and using the space that has already been created in my life to make sure that I am able to continue to allow the visions that God gives me to manifest.
Mm-hmm. And I want to personally share and publicly recognize you are an incredible accountability partner and prayer partner. There have been so many moments over the past several years where I have reached out to you for guidance, for counsel, for prayer. Um, Literally so many moments, and I know I am not the only one that is reaching out to you for wisdom and insight. And I want to thank you publicly for always taking my calls and responding to my text messages. I appreciate it because I know the demands of your time, and I just want to thank you.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. And I want to personally thank you as well. I know for a while we were praying regularly, right? We had scheduled prayer time and it was so beneficial for me. Being the person that a lot of people come to, it is awesome to have someone that I can go to, that I can trust, that I know is going to give me, the word as well as accountability. And so I thank you as well because you have been a great resource to me. So I appreciate you too, sis. So it goes both ways.
I want to ask, because you have such a heart for service, how do you preserve yourself when you are pouring out so much to so many impactful works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how do you preserve yourself?
I think having a self-care regimen is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Even though to the public eye it looks like I do a lot. It looks like I do a lot, but I
That is because you do, friend.
okay, I do a lot. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
do a lot. I think it looks like I do more
Okay.
than what I actually do. But I am intentional about taking time for myself.
Okay.
I will turn my phone on do not disturb. I will go get a massage. I will go get a mani pedi. I will do these things. I will shut everything down and spend time with my daughter, uninterrupted time. I will take trips. I will do. Now, I haven't been able to do some of that as much lately, but when I get to that point where I'm feeling overwhelmed or I can tell my stress levels are getting too high or I'm taking on too many things, I will push the pause button, and pushing that pause button allows me to rejuvenate, to refresh, and be able to come back even stronger.
That's good. So we've talked about your daughter. As she is being raised, she's beautiful, by the way. What do you hope that she is learning from you?
That is a good question. Um, I hope that she is learning to never take no for an answer. That's what I hope she's learning. I hope that because she is such a bright light, and I'm biased. I'm her mom, but she is such a bright light. She is so gifted and talented at such a young age, and it just comes out in these unexpected ways. And I just hope that she never lets anyone dim her light. I hope that she gets that from me because there was a time when I did let others dim my light, and I'm glad she doesn't know that person. I'm glad she knows the person that's willing to take chances, that's willing to take risks, that's willing to lay it all on the line for purpose. And I hope that she does the same to the 100th power, that she will go for her dreams and never take no for an answer.
I love that. I love that you are such an inspiration to not just the little ones, but to those in your circle. That taking risks and maximizing all the gifts that God gives us. Something that I am learning in this season is God has given us more, so much more, and an abundance of things that we just have to tap into and let Him know, oh, I'm ready. And He will provide the overflow.
Yes, for
and
sure.
You are an example of that. We have to let her go. But before we do, we have one final segment.
Okay.
And it is your journey ahead. As you seek the Lord for the next phase of your joy journey, would you dare share with the audience your vision, your prayer for yourself, for your family, for your businesses for the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, so I'll be 45 this year. I know
Okay.
I look 25, but I'll be
Indeed.
40.
And us.
But I will be 45 this year, and I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to speak this in faith, and I'm going to decree it and declare it. I want to retire at 50.
Yes.
And when I say retire, I don't mean retire from purpose. I mean retire from working for other people. Because I want to be able to fully dedicate myself to doing the things that I know God has called me to. I am currently working on getting investors for the production of my first film, which I believe will come to fruition within the next 5 years. And so I want to be able to use my time, all of my time, just to give back, to pour out, and to really, truly help people use their obstacles as stepping stones to greatness. And when you're working for someone else, you don't always have that freedom. And I want to be able to have that freedom in the next 5 years, to be able to do that 100% of the time, not part-time, but 100% of the time.
Oh, I believe that for you, sis.
Thank you.
The freedom to focus on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
because we need you to be free to focus on purpose. People's freedom is waiting on you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, how can someone find you if they're like, I need that conquering power?
Well, you can reach me on social media. My Instagram is at morethancope.com. I'm sorry, at morethancope is my Instagram. My website is morethancope.com. So they can schedule consultations on my website or reach out to me on social media. I also have a Facebook at C.O.P.E. Inc., C.O.P.E. Inc. on Facebook as well. So those are the quickest ways to reach me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if there's anyone out there that you've heard something, I'm sure you have heard something that you know, I need to tap into that. Please get in touch. Please, please, please get in touch. And let us know, what was your favorite takeaway, things that you had to go, wait, what was that she said? Back, and copy, write down. Be sure to share this episode with a friend or two or three. And if you write a comment, especially on the podcast platforms, that helps us be more discoverable. But until we gather again every single Thursday, may God increase your joy, grant you strength for the journey, and give you the courage to tell your story. Bye, friends.